Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I never imagined fear could break me the way it did that night. But it did. My name is Landon Price. I was 21. And back then my life was hanging by a thread. My father had left when I was 12, and my mother had worked herself into exhaustion keeping a roof over our heads. By the time I got into college in Seattle, the student loans were already burying me. Rent was late, my part-time grocery job barely paid for food, and I'd started skipping meals just to make textbooks stretch. That's why when I saw his profile, I didn't swipe left. Dorian Vance. Age, 42. Bio, seeking someone loyal. $800 weekly allowance. No intimacy, just companionship. The picture showed a sharply dressed man in a blazer, but his face was hidden behind a mask. A grotesque rubber mask with deep wrinkles, like an old man's face melting. It was bizarre, almost comical, but also unsettling. Still, my brain didn't see the mask. It saw the $800. I swiped right. A second later, the notification appeared. It's a match. Almost instantly, a message came through. Dorian. Hello, Landon. I've been waiting for someone like you. Me. That's quick. Hi. Dorian. I don't waste time. You want this to work, don't you? $800 a week. No strings, just spend time with me. I remember staring at my phone, my throat dry. Me. You're serious? Just hang out? Dorian. Exactly. A smart young man like you should be rewarded for his company. You won't regret it. My rent notice was taped to the fridge. The landlord had written "Final warning" in red ink. I thought of my mother. Working overtime shifts, she wasn't healthy enough to be working. I typed back, me. Okay, when do you want to meet? The first meeting was in public, at a rooftop bar in downtown Seattle. Dorian wore a dark coat, gloves, and, most unsettling of all, his mask. Not a medical mask, not something discreet. The same grotesque, wrinkled mask from his profile picture. I laughed awkwardly when I saw him. Is that a joke? He tilted his head. His voice was smooth, steady. It helps me stay myself. You'll get used to it. He paid for everything without hesitation. Drinks, food, even a ride share to take me back to my dorm. He didn't touch me. Didn't even stand too close. He just asked me questions. Where I grew up, what my dreams were, if I had any fears. Looking back, that last question should have been my warning. Our arrangement lasted about 3 weeks. Every Friday, he sent me $800 through PayPal. Every Saturday night I met him, always masked, always watching me with those pale eyes behind rubber wrinkles. Sometimes we sat in fancy restaurants. Other times he drove me along the waterfront in his sleek black car. He never removed the mask. One night I asked him, half joking, "Do you ever take that thing off?" He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Not around people I care about. The mask shows me who they are, what they look like when the fear comes. I laughed nervously, thinking it was some weird metaphor. But his voice never shifted, never hinted at humor. The night it all changed, he invited me to what he called an exclusive gathering. He said it wasn't a party exactly, more of a private get-together with people who understood him. Every instinct screamed, say no. But I thought of the $800 and the fact that tuition payment was due in 2 days. I agreed. He picked me up around midnight in his black SUV. The city lights faded as we drove out past the suburbs, into the dark, wooded stretches north of Seattle. I kept glancing at him. The mask glowed faintly in the dashboard light, its wrinkles seeming deeper, more alive. Where are we going? I asked. You'll see, he said softly. It'll be unforgettable. The house was massive and isolated, set back from the road and swallowed by trees. Its windows were black, unlit. My stomach tightened as he led me inside. The air was heavy with some strange smell, iron, rot, and something chemical I couldn't place. Only one bulb flickered in the hallway, pulsing like a heartbeat. I stopped. Dorian, I don't feel right about this. His gloved hand rested on my shoulder. Relax. You're safe with me. That was the last moment I felt safe. Hands grabbed me from behind. I screamed, thrashing, but they were strong. At least 3 people dragged me into a room and tied me to a chair. My voice broke, my chest heaving. Dorian! What the hell is this? He stood in the corner, the mask glowing faintly in the dim light. Calm, patient. Let's begin, he said softly. The first burn seared into my skin like molten fire. One of them pressed a heated iron rod against my arm. My scream echoed in the concrete walls. Tears blurred my vision, but I could still see Dorian watching, tilting his head as if studying an experiment. Do you know why I wear this mask? He asked. I sobbed, choking on my words. Please, stop. Because it lets me see who you really are when the fear takes over. The next hours blurred into hell. They didn't just hurt me, they toyed with me. They gave me water, untied one hand, whispered reassurances, then started again. One man brought out nails and a hammer. The sound of the first strike against my finger was drowned in my own screaming. But the worst part wasn't the pain. It was Dorian's eyes behind that mask. Empty, lifeless, as if there wasn't a person there at all. At some point, they left me alone. Maybe they thought I was broken enough not to escape, but adrenaline is stronger than pain. With raw, bleeding wrists, I twisted and pulled until the rope loosened. My bare feet barely made a sound on the cold floor as I stumbled through the hallway. Their laughter echoed from another room. By the exit, I froze, the mask hanging on a hook. For a moment, I swore it was breathing, watching me. My body shook, but I forced myself forward, flung the door open, and ran into the night. The cold air stabbed into my wounds as I ran barefoot down the gravel road, the world a blur of blood and tears. By some miracle, I found a gas station, and from there, the police. At first, they didn't believe me. Who would? My story sounded like a horror movie, but when they saw the burns, the cuts, the mangled fingers, the officer's face changed. Tell me everything, he said. So I did. Days later, the raid happened. When they arrested Dorian Vance, he was in his mansion dancing to music with a glass of wine in one hand, still wearing his mask. As they cuffed him, he turned to me. For the first time, I saw his real face. You'd expect a monster, but he looked ordinary, young for his age. Sharp jaw, clean skin, no wrinkles, but the eyes were the same, cold, hollow, inhuman. He leaned close as they dragged him away. See you soon, he whispered. He's behind bars now. Dozens of victims came forward after me. Torture, abuse, psychological games. His wealthy family is already trying to bend the justice system, hiring the best lawyers, painting him as misunderstood. But I know the truth. Even when I close my eyes, I still hear the hammer striking my nail. I still smell the burning flesh. I still see the mask. Dorian may be locked away, but his shadow isn't. And every time I walk home alone at night, I can feel it. That mask, just behind me, waiting. I never thought that a single swipe on a dating app would alter the course of my life forever. At 22, I was broke, exhausted, and drowning in quiet shame. My parents had split when I was 16. Mom had remarried and moved interstate. Dad, who once doted on me, slipped deeper into alcohol and bitterness until we barely spoke. I had been living in a share house in South Bank, Melbourne, juggling a barista job during the day and night classes at uni, always telling myself that one day things would be different. But the weight of bills, rent, and loneliness pressed harder than any promise of the future. When my roommate Mia joked one night, "Just get a sugar daddy, Harper." "Half the girls I know already do," I laughed. But later, lying in bed scrolling through Tinder, I couldn't ignore how easy the idea sounded. And that's how I matched with Alexander Cole. His profile said 46, but his photos showed a man in immaculate suits, silver hair swept back, clear blue eyes, and a smile that seemed carved to charm. His bio read simply, "Looking for someone special to spoil. No pressure, no games." When his message appeared seconds after I swiped right, "Hello, Harper. You have the kind of smile that could light up a room. Would you let me take you to dinner?" I felt a mix of nerves and relief. I almost backed out. The night of the dinner, I stood in front of the mirror of our cramped bathroom, staring at myself in a borrowed black dress. My hands trembled as I applied lipstick. Mia leaned on the doorframe, smirking. Relax. Worst case, he's a creep and you block him. Best case, you get rent money and champagne. I forced a laugh. My stomach was knots. When I reached the restaurant, a high-end place on Collins Street I had never dared step into before, he was already there. Alexander rose as soon as I walked in, pulling out a chair with a smoothness that felt like something from a movie. "Harper," he said warmly, his voice deep, confident. "You look exquisite." I muttered a thanks, embarrassed, but his gaze didn't make me feel cheap. At least not at first. The dinner felt surreal. He ordered champagne but insisted I drink sparkling water. "I don't mix alcohol with meaningful conversation," he said with a soft smile. "I'd like to know you, sober." He asked about my studies, my dreams, my childhood. When I stumbled talking about my father, he didn't push, only nodded thoughtfully. By dessert, he had placed an envelope on the table. "For your rent," he said simply. "Consider it a gift. No strings. Just let me see you again." Inside was $700 in cash. I should have felt shame. Instead, I felt relief so strong I nearly cried. Alexander didn't behave like the men Mia warned me about. He didn't push for sex. Instead, he called himself my mentor. He took me to restaurants, his penthouse in Turak, even to small art galleries where he'd whisper about the brushstrokes as if he owned the paintings. Sometimes, he'd bring up odd topics out of nowhere. "Have you ever thought about death?" he asked once while driving me home at night. The city lights blurred past the window. His tone was casual, almost playful. I guess," I muttered. "It's better to die comfortable than to die chained," he said. Then he smiled, as if it were a joke. But the words stayed with me. Despite his wealth and calm, there was something unsettling in his presence. The way his eyes lingered too long. The way his hand brushed my shoulder a second too late to feel accidental. Still, I stayed. I needed him. By the third month, my feelings grew confusing. He was twice my age, and yet, when he looked at me across a dinner table, I felt chosen, special. But then, the cracks. One night, I asked lightly, "So, do you see other girls like me?" He tilted his head, amused. "Harper, you are not like anyone. Don't compare yourself." "Still," I pressed. He leaned closer. "If you must know, yes, I meet people. I help people. You are not the first, but you could be the last." The words made me shiver, though I couldn't tell if it was fear or excitement. That week, I started noticing a girl. Blonde, younger than me, maybe 19. I saw her once at a cafe Alexander had taken me to, sitting alone. Another time outside the university library. Each time she avoided my eyes. And then, one evening, I saw her with him. They were walking into a restaurant in St. Kilda, his hand resting lightly on her back. My stomach twisted violently. The next session at his apartment, I forced a laugh. "So, Alex, saw you the other day, with a very pretty young girl." His lips curled faintly. "Ava," he said, "a troubled soul, like you once were. She's a friend." "A friend," I repeated, my voice tight. "Don't look so wounded, Harper. You and we are bound differently." I didn't know if I believed him. But jealousy burned through me. 2 weeks later, he invited me to what he called a small gathering of friends. When I arrived, it was just me, Eva, and him. The night felt heavy, wrong. Ava hardly spoke, her eyes darting toward him with a mixture of fear and admiration. Alexander was charming, telling stories, pouring sparkling water into crystal glasses. At one point, I whispered to Eva in the kitchen, "Are you okay?" She smiled faintly. "He's helping me. He saved me." Her voice was flat, rehearsed. Later, Alexander suggested we go down to his collection room in the basement. The air was colder there, the concrete walls lined with shelves of wine bottles and strange artifacts, the lighting dim. Eva stood awkwardly near the wall. "I want to celebrate something," Alexander said softly. He stepped behind her. Perfection. I blinked, confused. And then, he stabbed her. Her scream was muffled as his hand clamped over her mouth. Blood sprayed against the polished floor. My body froze, my lungs locked. When she collapsed, he turned to me, calm, his eyes gleaming. "This is the only way to enjoy what's beautiful," he whispered. I wanted to run, to scream, but my legs betrayed me. Instead, I helped. I don't remember why. Maybe fear, maybe shock, maybe his control over me was stronger than I ever admitted. I helped him drag her body, helped clean the blood. And then, I left. For days I used again. Alcohol, pills, anything to blur it. I avoided Mia. I shut my phone off. But the images returned every time I closed my eyes. Eva's eyes. The sound of her final scream. Then the sirens. Police in the building. Knocks on doors. I stood there when they came. My lips moved before my brain caught up. "Yeah. I helped hide the body," I said. The officer froze, staring at me. And I realized, maybe I hadn't spoken aloud. Maybe it was just in my head. The trial came months later. Newspapers splashed his name. Alexander Cole, 47, financial advisor, accused of murder. They wrote about Eva's body, found weeks later in a landfill, stuffed into a freezer first. They wrote about me, the student companion, the girl too entangled to pull away. In court, he looked at me once, just once, and his eyes said everything. "You will never be free of me." Even now I wonder, was I his victim or his accomplice? Sometimes at night I scroll back to that first Tinder message. The words glow on the screen like a curse. "Would you let me take you to dinner?" I still don't know if I ever had a choice. I thought I knew him. I was 67 years old when it happened, and after 44 years of marriage, I believed there was nothing in the world my husband could do to surprise me. Marriage, after all, is built on routine. You learn the way your partner sighs when he's tired, the subtle grimace when he's hiding pain in his knees, the little habits that become as familiar as your own heartbeat. That's why the changes, as small as they were, didn't sit right with me. A new cologne that smelled too sharp, too young. A smile that lingered after a text message. A sudden habit of slipping his phone face down on the table. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, Martin and I had survived raising 3 children, 3 mortgages, and countless storms of life together. He was my partner, my anchor. But sometimes your instincts know before your heart does. It started with Sierra Daniels. Martin was a psychiatrist, an old-school type with a mahogany office and shelves lined with books he'd actually read. He'd always been kind to struggling parents, often lowering his fees or giving extra time when he knew families couldn't afford it. One evening he came home and said, Kathy, I met a mother today. She's at her wit's end with her boy, panic attacks, night terrors. She doesn't have support. I told her I'd connect her with resources. That was Martin, always the savior, always the one people leaned on. I met Sierra a month later. She didn't look like the struggling, worried mother I'd pictured. She had glossy hair, heavy makeup, lips that seemed sculpted by a surgeon, and dresses that dipped too low for polite company. Her chest, well, it entered the room before she did. "Thank you, Doctor Bain," she said the first time she came to dinner, her eyes never leaving my husband's face. "I don't know how I'd survive without your help." Martin beamed like a boy praised by his favorite teacher. At first I believed him, believed her. After all, he'd spent his whole career helping people. Why would this be different? But soon the details began slipping. The son was never mentioned again. When I asked how the boy was, Sierra's answers grew vague. "He's managing," she'd mutter before steering the conversation elsewhere. Martin began taking phone calls outside, his voice hushed. His hours stretched later into the evening. Then there were receipts, handbags from boutiques I'd never stepped into, dinners at restaurants far pricier than our usual date nights. I wanted to believe the best. But truth has a way of bleeding through, no matter how tight you wrap it. One night, I overheard him on the phone in the den. "I can't keep doing this, Sierra. You promised you'd get back on your feet." My stomach flipped. I didn't confront him. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was pride. But something in me needed proof, needed him to reveal the truth without me having to ask. The proof came in layers. A conference in Reno that didn't include me, when for decades he'd always insisted I join him. A careless lie about Sierra being a medical rep, when I knew he'd introduced her as a patient's mother. His face tightening when I pressed for details. I remember one morning as he adjusted his watch at the kitchen table. "Just 2 nights," he said. "I'll be back before you know it." "Is Sierra going to be there?" I asked. He froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. "She might," he said. "She's involved with the medical field." "Oh?" I tilted my head. I thought her son had severe anxiety. "He does. ADHD. He's on the spectrum." I leaned in. "I thought you said it was panic attacks." His eyes flicked up, caught in the net of his own contradictions. Neither of us spoke. That silence screamed louder than any accusation. I excused myself, walked into the bathroom, and came back holding the wedding ring he'd left on the counter. "Your finger shrinking?" I asked quietly. It must have slipped off. He swallowed. "Kathy." I slid the ring onto a chain and hung it around his neck. "Then wear it where it won't fall." He didn't argue. He left with a suitcase and his laptop. He said 2 nights. When 3 days passed without a single text or call, my chest tightened with dread. I dialed him over and over, straight to voicemail. That's when I called the police. 2 days later, a detective came to my door, tall with a gravelly voice that seemed to scrape at my bones. "Mrs. Bain," he said, removing his hat, "we found your husband's body." The world slowed to syrup. They'd discovered him in an abandoned sedan off a dusty highway outside Reno, bludgeoned, his head wrapped in a towel soaked through with blood. "It wasn't random," the detective said grimly. "This was personal." The investigation peeled back the layers of deception I hadn't wanted to see. Sierra wasn't a struggling mother. She wasn't a medical rep. She was an ex-adult entertainer whose career had dissolved into escort work and scams. Martin had started by paying her rent, just until she got back on her feet. Then it was credit card bills, then expensive gifts. He told himself he was helping her, but in truth, she had him on a leash, and she knew exactly how to yank it. When Martin tried to cut her off, she grew furious. Hotel security footage showed them arguing in a hallway, Martin's voice raised. "You're a parasite, I'm done." Sierra didn't take rejection lightly. She called her ex-boyfriend, a man named Eddie Vance, whose criminal record ran longer than the highway they left Martin's body beside. Together they plotted revenge. Eddie brought the tire iron. Sierra brought the rage. Witnesses saw them wait in the hotel parking lot. When Martin walked out, suitcase in hand, they pounced. According to Sierra's confession, Martin begged for his life. She told Eddie to make it messy, and he did. When the police arrested Sierra, she didn't look remorseful. Her mugshot showed her almost smirking, like this was just another inconvenience. Eddie took a plea deal, 30 years. Sierra, convicted of first-degree murder, will spend the rest of her life behind bars. And me? I live with the image of Martin's final moments, alone, betrayed, realizing too late the cost of his choices. There is one detail that both comforts and devastates me. When they found him, his hand was clutching the ring I'd strung around his neck. Maybe he thought of me in those last seconds. Maybe he wished he'd chosen differently. I'll never know. What I do know is this. Even the most brilliant minds can be blinded by desire. Even the most steadfast marriages can crack under the weight of lies. And monsters don't always come from dark alleys. Sometimes they walk through your front door, wearing perfume and a smile. I never thought I'd actually go through with it. I was a broke university student, living in a crummy 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate who always paid rent late and left dirty dishes stacked like a leaning tower in our sink. Between tuition, textbooks, and overpriced groceries, I was drowning. My campus job at the library barely covered utilities, and I'd started counting coins from my car's cup holder just to buy ramen. That's when the profile showed up. Not even an ad, really. It was a Tinder profile. Damien, 45. Looking for a sugar baby. $700 weekly. No sex, just companionship and small favors. I stared at his pictures for a long time. If he was 45, then I was 60. He looked 30, maybe 31 at most. Clean cut, sharp jawline, dark hair swept neatly to one side, a little too polished. His bio was short and to the point. No motivational quotes, no shirtless flexes, no fishing selfies like half the other men on there. Just those words. $700 weekly. No sex. It screamed scam, or worse. But then again, $700 was more than I made in a month. I matched with him. Almost instantly, a message popped up. Damien. Hey there, sweetheart. I cringed at that word. Sweetheart. It sounded like something greasy men at bars said right before they touched your lower back without asking. But $700 was $700 and I was desperate. Me. Hey. The conversation started simple. He asked about school, about what I studied. I told him psychology, though mostly I was just trying to survive the semester. He said he ran his own business. I asked what kind, but he never gave a straight answer, just that it kept him busy. Something about him felt too smooth. His messages were clean, perfectly punctuated, like each one was proofread before being sent. Still, he didn't push, didn't say anything sexual. Then came the kicker. Damien. What's your Venmo? I'd like to send the first week up front. My pulse quickened. I typed my handle with shaky fingers. A minute later, my phone buzzed. $700 received. I stared at the notification, expecting it to vanish, expecting some kind of error message. But it didn't. Me. Wow. Okay. So, what exactly do you want in return? I hovered over the screen until his typing bubble popped up. Damien. I just need you to do a few favors for me. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing that would make you uncomfortable. Me. Like what? Damien. The first thing is simple. Pick up a package for me. Deliver it to my house, that's it. I almost laughed. It sounded like the start of a bad movie. $700 to pick up a box? No way. Me. From where? Damien. I'll send you the address. I'd rather not do this through Tinder. Do you have a number I can text? My brain screamed red flag, but I was broke, desperate, and curious. Against my better judgment, I gave him my number. Seconds later, a text came through. Unknown number. Here's the pickup address. Here's my house address too. I'm not home, but you'll find a spare key under the blue flower pot by the door. Go inside and leave the package on the living room coffee table. Make sure you lock the door behind you, both when you enter and when you leave. I reread the message 3 times. It was strange. But then again, if he wanted me to leave something inside, it wasn't like he was luring me to an empty warehouse. Still, I hesitated. Me. Okay. On my way. As I pulled out of my driveway, my phone buzzed again. Damien. I'm serious. Lock the door both times. Don't forget. The way he wrote it made my stomach twist. The pickup house was in a rundown part of town where the sidewalks cracked under weeds and the street lamps flickered like dying stars. His address led me to a crooked chain-link fence, the gate hanging by one hinge. The house itself looked abandoned. Peeling paint, boarded windows. I almost turned around. Then a man filled the doorway. He was massive, broad-shouldered, covered in tattoos, his head brushing the frame of the door. You here for Damien's package? He asked. His voice was gravel, low and sharp. Yeah, I said, frozen on the sidewalk. Stay there. He disappeared inside. My heart thudded. There wasn't a soul on the street. When he returned, he carried a cardboard box about the size of a shoebox stained dark on one corner. Pop your trunk, he said. I did. He placed the box inside and shut it carefully. There you go. Thanks, I said weakly, already edging toward the driver's seat. He paused, squinting at me. One more thing. My hand froze on the door handle. Watch out. I didn't reply. I got in, slammed the door, and drove. Damien's house was the opposite. A mansion. Perfect stone pillars. Trimmed hedges. a yard so green it looked fake. I grabbed the package, found the flower pot key, and stepped inside. The air was heavy with expensive cologne. The furniture gleamed, carved wood and velvet cushions. The kind of place that screamed money. I set the package on the coffee table. That's when I heard it. A phone ringing somewhere inside. I froze. My phone buzzed. Damien, don't answer any calls that aren't from Marvin. What? I followed the sound to an office. A phone buzzed on the desk. The screen read, "Incoming call from Damien." My chest tightened. I backed away, left the phone ringing, and locked the door behind me as I fled. That was just the first errand. The weeks blurred together after that. Drive a BMW to a random park, leave it, and drive a different car back. Meet a man named Julio at a diner, take a locked briefcase, and deliver it to the rundown house. Sit with Julio for hours at a time while Damien texted updates. Every time, the money came. Venmo transfers, instant and exact. By the end of the month, I'd made $3,500. It was addicting. Scary, but addicting. Then one night, I woke up to a text. Damien, I need you to stay at my house tonight. $1,000. My stomach sank. Me. Why? Damien, just follow the rules. The list will be on the dining table. Don't break them. You'll be safe. I told myself it was fine. Just one night. Just money. His house looked the same as before, perfect. Too perfect. Inside on the dining table was a handwritten note weighed down by a glass. Rules. Lock the door when you enter. Only answer calls from Marvin. Do not turn on any faucets between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. Do not open the door for anyone after 10 p.m., no matter what they say. If the hallway closet is open, sleep in the library. If it's closed, any bedroom is fine. The gardener comes at midnight. If he knocks on the windows, hide. Turn the TV to static and let it play all night. Do not forget this. Help yourself to the fridge. Payment in the morning. Good night. I read the list 3 times. My skin prickled. This wasn't just paranoia. These were rules, rituals. I brushed my teeth at 8:50, checked the closet, open, so the library, and settled in on the velvet couch. I locked the doors. At 10:16, the doorbell rang. It's the police, open up. I froze. It's urgent, open the door or we're coming in. Rule 4 burned in my brain. Do not open the door. I stayed still. Silence, then another ring. It's Damien, let me in. My blood ran cold. He had a key. Why would he need me to let him in? For an hour, the bell rang. Voices, please, orders, all different, all wrong. Eventually, I drifted into a fitful sleep. When I woke, it was morning. The smell of coffee pulled me to the kitchen, and there he was. Damien, cooking eggs like nothing was wrong. Morning, he said casually. My chest tightened. He looked exactly like his photos. Too exact. I forced myself to eat, made excuses about class, and left. When I got home, I unpacked. That's when I noticed I still had the list of rules. I reread them. My stomach dropped. Turn the TV on to static and let it play all night. Do not forget. I hadn't done that. My phone buzzed. A Venmo payment. $1,000. Then a text from Damien. I'm not in town right now. Won't be back until next week. No errands until then. My hand shook. If he wasn't in town, who was in that kitchen? Another buzz. Unknown number. Did you forget something? Attached was a picture. Damien, or the man pretending to be him, standing in front of a TV filled with static. Then another photo. The outside of my apartment. Watch out. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the building made me jump. I kept my phone clutched in my hand, waiting for another message. When the knock finally came, soft, deliberate against my bedroom window, I almost screamed. But I didn't. I just sat there frozen, praying the rules didn't follow me home. I thought I was in control. I was 23 when it happened, a student at Mountain Valley University in Colorado. On the surface, I was just another college girl, balancing classes, hanging out with friends, stressing over exams, and chasing a better future. But underneath there was a secret side of me I rarely admitted to anyone. I was a sugar baby. It didn't start as some glamorous plan. I wasn't the type to dream about designer bags or fancy dinners. It began out of necessity. Tuition, rent, groceries, everything kept piling up. My scholarship covered part of my expenses, and I worked part-time at a campus cafe. But it wasn't enough. I was burning out, constantly calculating whether I could afford both my textbooks and my electric bill. One night during sophomore year, my roommate joked about how some girls got sugar daddies. They just hang out with old guys and get paid, she said, scrolling through her phone. I saw on TikTok, some of them get their tuition covered. I laughed it off. Yeah, right. That's real. But the seed was planted. Later, lying in bed, I Googled it. To my surprise, there were dozens of websites and apps specifically for arrangements like that. It felt wrong at first, dangerous even, but also tempting. My bank account balance was painfully low, and the idea of having financial security, even for a short while, was hard to ignore. I told myself I'd be careful. I wasn't going to sell myself. I'd set rules, boundaries, control. So I signed up on one of the apps. My profile was innocent, a photo of me in a simple black dress, smiling, and a short bio about being an ambitious student looking for mentorship and support. I didn't post anything sexual. The messages came fast. Some were disgusting right from the start. $500 if you send me pics. Looking for someone submissive, no limits. I blocked those. But others seemed normal. Men who claimed to be professionals, successful, generous. Some wanted dinner dates. Some wanted a travel companion. Some offered allowances with barely any strings attached. It was overwhelming. I dipped my toes slowly. My first arrangement was with a divorced lawyer in his 50s. All he wanted was dinner twice a week and conversation. He paid me $600 a month. He was kind, harmless, even fatherly. Over time, I met others. Some treated me with respect, others with arrogance. I learned how to spot red flags. I learned when to walk away. And I kept telling myself I was in control. But then came him. His name on the app was Victor Hale. His profile was sharp, polished, pictures in suits, standing beside a glossy black BMW, and one of him at what looked like a business gala. His bio read, entrepreneur, traveler, lover of art and ambition, looking for someone intelligent, driven, and discreet. It stood out. Unlike the others, his first message wasn't crude. Victor, I admire how focused you are on your studies. I think ambition is the most attractive quality a woman can have. I stared at it, hesitating. It didn't feel like the typical sugar daddy line. I typed back cautiously, me, thanks. What exactly are you looking for? He replied quickly. Victor, mutual respect. I enjoy mentoring women who know what they want. Of course, I'm happy to support financially, but more importantly, I want a bond. Someone genuine. A bond, not just money. Something about the way he wrote, polite, articulate, confident, lowered my guard. Over the next few days, we messaged constantly. He asked about my major, my goals, my family. He said he admired how independent I was. He said I deserved to be taken care of, not stressed about bills. Part of me wanted to believe him. When he suggested meeting in person, my stomach twisted. Normally, men picked fancy restaurants or hotels. But Victor said he preferred privacy. Too many eyes in public, he wrote. Discretion is important for both of us. He suggested meeting at a small park near Lakewood, on the edge of the city, late at night, when fewer people would be around. I hesitated. It didn't feel right. But he kept reassuring me. You can trust me. I've done this before, you'll be safe. And like a fool, I convinced myself it was fine. It was a Tuesday. I had just flown back from visiting my parents after my grandmother's funeral. My emotions were raw, my mind exhausted. I told myself meeting Victor would be simple. Just a discussion, nothing more. Another step toward securing financial stability. I packed my bag carefully, wallet, keys, pepper spray, and phone. I even shared my location with a friend, just in case, though I didn't tell her the truth about where I was going. When I arrived at the park, it was nearly midnight. The air was cold, and the place was eerily empty, the kind of silence where even your own footsteps feel too loud. Then I saw him. Victor. He was leaning against his car, a sleek black sedan that looked expensive but out of place in the rundown lot. He was taller than I expected, broader, his posture stiff. His expression was unreadable. "You must be Claire," he said smoothly, using the fake name I'd given. "Yeah," I forced a smile. "Long night?" "Kind of." He opened the passenger door. "Come on, let's talk somewhere private." That was my first mistake. The locks clicked when the door shut. The sound made my heart skip. At first, the conversation seemed normal. He asked where I grew up, if I lived alone, if my family knew where I was. His tone was casual, but the questions felt invasive. "No," I said firmly when he pressed about my parents. He smirked, eyes glinting. "Secrets are good. Makes this more exciting." I tried to laugh it off, but unease twisted in my gut. When he turned off the main road into darker, narrower streets, panic crept in. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere private," he said again. Calm. Too calm. He stopped in front of a small, decaying house at the edge of town. The yard was overgrown, the windows dark. It looked abandoned. "This is me," he said, stepping out. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but his stare pinned me in place. Reluctantly, I followed. Inside, the air was stale, reeking of mildew and something chemical. Furniture was mismatched, the floor cluttered with papers and cans. It was nothing like the image he'd presented online. "Make yourself comfortable," Victor said, smirking. I sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, clutching my bag. "Drink?" he offered, holding up cheap wine. "No thanks." He frowned but didn't argue. Instead, he sat beside me, too close, his knee brushing mine. His hand slid onto my shoulder. "You're tense," he whispered. I forced a smile. "I think I should go." His smile vanished. "Go?" he repeated, voice sharp. "Yes, this isn't what I signed up for." I stood, moving toward the door, but he was faster. His hand clamped around my arm, yanking me back. "You're not going anywhere." His grip was iron. He shoved me against the wall, one hand clamping over my mouth. My muffled scream echoed uselessly. I kicked, clawed, fought with everything I had. My nails dug into his skin, my legs thrashed. For a brief moment, he grunted in pain when I landed a hit, loosening his grip. I twisted free, almost. He grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanking my head back so hard I gasped. "You think you can run?" he hissed. His face was inches from mine, eyes blazing with something inhuman. His other hand pressed against my throat, not enough to choke me completely, but enough to remind me he had full control. Tears blurred my vision as I whimpered, "Why are you doing this?" And then he said it, calm, cold, like discussing the weather. "I just want to know what it feels like to kill someone." The words froze me. My heart stopped. This wasn't about money, not companionship, not even sex. It was about murder. What followed was chaos, a blur of struggling, screaming, fighting for air. My body grew weaker. My mind screamed for escape, but his strength was overwhelming. The last thing I remember was his eyes, empty, detached, watching me like I was an experiment. I wasn't in control. I never was. The next morning, Claire Matthews, a 23-year-old student, was reported missing. Her friend said she had flown back late that night and never made it home. Days later, police discovered her remains in a fire pit behind an abandoned house. The man known as Victor Hale was arrested after digital forensics traced his messages. His real name was Aaron Mitchell. When questioned, he showed no remorse. He simply repeated what he had told her. I wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But that doesn't change the fact that Claire's story ended in terror because she thought she was in control. I was 22 years old, broke and drowning in responsibilities when this happened. Life wasn't glamorous for me. I worked as a cashier at a retail clothing store, barely scraping enough to cover rent for my one-bedroom apartment in Salt Lake City. My fridge was always half empty. My car's check engine light had been on for months, and every time I got a paycheck, it felt like it disappeared before I even had a chance to breathe. The pressure of being young and broke crushed me every day. I wasn't from money. My parents worked regular jobs. My mom was a nurse, my dad drove trucks. They helped where they could, but I didn't want to keep running to them every time I was short on bills. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to live like those girls on Instagram. Perfect makeup, designer bags, traveling to places I couldn't even pronounce. I hated how much envy consumed me, but I couldn't stop scrolling through my feed at night, staring at girls who were my age yet looked like they lived in another universe. That's when I came across the website. It was called Affluent Arrangements, a sugar daddy, sugar baby platform that popped up in my feed after I'd Googled ways to make extra money. At first I laughed it off. I wasn't the type of girl who did things like that, but curiosity pulled me in. The homepage showed young women on yachts and beaches, sipping champagne, captioned with promises of luxury living and financial stability. It was like the exact life I'd been daydreaming about was staring back at me. I told myself I'd only look, just browse. But one profile changed everything. His name was listed as Victor, age 52. A self-made businessman from Nevada who split his time between his company and his private getaway property. His picture showed a tall, well-groomed man with silver hair, expensive suits, and a smile that looked more polished than genuine. His bio said, "I believe in generosity. I don't want drama. I don't want games. I want someone sweet, respectful, and fun to spend time with. In return, I'll make sure you're spoiled properly. Life's too short not to share luxury with someone who appreciates it." It was straightforward. Too straightforward. I clicked out. Then, 2 days later, I came back. I sent him a message. Me. "Hey, Victor. I'm new to this, so forgive me if I sound awkward." Victor. "Hello, sweetheart. Nothing awkward about honesty. I appreciate it. You have such kind eyes. I knew I had to message you back." Me. "Thanks. I'll be honest. I'm mostly here because I'm struggling financially. My job barely covers bills." Victor. "That's exactly what I'm here for. I don't need anything physical from you. I just want companionship. Someone to talk to. Someone to share experiences with. In return, I'll make sure money is the least of your worries." It sounded like a dream. For the next month, we messaged daily. He was consistent. Good morning texts, random check-ins, and little compliments. He never crossed the line or asked for inappropriate favors. Instead, he mailed me things, real things. A Louis Vuitton handbag, 2 Ralph Lauren suits for me to wear to important dinners someday, a pair of Christian Louboutin heels that cost more than my rent. Every time I opened a package, I felt my stomach twist with guilt, but that guilt was drowned out by excitement. For once, I felt seen, wanted, important. When he finally asked to meet in person, I hesitated. "Victor, I'd like to invite you for a weekend away, just us. You'll be treated like a queen. My pilot can pick us up Friday evening. We'll fly private. I promise nothing you don't want will happen." A weekend away, on a private island. At first I thought he was joking. Who owns a private island? But when he sent me pictures, crystal blue water, white sand beaches, and a massive villa that looked like it belonged in a Hollywood movie, I realized he was serious. Every logical part of my brain screamed no. I barely knew him. But the other part, the greedy, exhausted, desperate part, saw an escape. A real vacation. A chance to feel like those girls on Instagram. So I said yes. Friday night, I stood at the small private terminal of the airport, clutching the designer handbag he'd sent me, wearing the sleek black Versace dress he'd gifted for my birthday. My heart pounded in my chest as a sleek jet taxied into view. The door opened and Victor stepped out. He looked exactly like his pictures. Sharp suit, manicured appearance, the kind of man who radiated wealth. He smiled warmly when he saw me. "You must be Elena," he said, his voice smooth and rehearsed. "That's me," I replied nervously. "You're even more stunning in person." He leaned in and kissed me lightly on the cheek. His cologne was strong, musky, expensive. "Come on. Let's give you the weekend you deserve." Inside, the jet was a world I didn't belong in. Soft leather seats, champagne chilling in ice, a tray of delicate desserts. I tried to play it cool, but I couldn't stop staring. "You'll get used to this," Victor chuckled, noticing my wide eyes. The flight was about 3 hours. By the time the plane descended, it was close to midnight. I looked out the window and saw dark waves shimmering under the moonlight, and beyond that, a massive stretch of land lit with faint golden lights. "My island," Victor said proudly, "home away from home." The villa was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows that opened to a private beach. For a moment, I felt like I was living a fairy tale, until I saw the others. In the living room, near the fireplace, sat 3 older men. They looked at least 70, maybe older. Their skin sagged, their eyes were predatory, and the way they grinned when I walked in made my stomach churn. Victor's tone shifted as he introduced them. "These are some of my acquaintances. They get lonely sometimes. I thought they might enjoy your company." I froze. I thought this was just us." "Don't worry," he said, gripping my hand tighter. "They're harmless. They just want to drink, laugh, and enjoy your presence. You don't have to do anything you don't want." But the way the old man's eyes lingered on me said otherwise. As we sat, I felt like a doll put on display. They drank heavily, making crude comments, whispering to each other, laughing. One of them slurred, "Why don't you dance for us, sweetheart?" Another chimed in, "Yeah, show us what you've got. That little peach looks ripe." My face burned with humiliation. I turned to Victor. "What the hell is this?" He leaned close and whispered, "Do as they say, Elena. They'll drown you in money, more than you'll ever see in your lifetime." That's when it hit me. He hadn't been spoiling me out of generosity. He had been investing, grooming me, preparing me for this moment. The anger bubbled up before I could stop it. I stood, walked over to the most leering man, and slapped him hard across the face. His dentures flew onto the carpet. The room exploded into chaos. The old men screamed at Victor, accusing him of lying. Victor tried to calm them down, but his own dentures slipped when he shouted back, revealing that he wasn't 52. He was older, much older. The realization made me sick. Everything had been a lie. While they bickered, I ran, out the villa, down the dock, toward the single speedboat tied at the end. My heels clacked against the wood as I fumbled to untie it, my hands shaking. Behind me I heard shouting, Victor's voice. "Elena, don't do this, you'll regret it." I didn't look back. I started the engine, and the boat roared to life. I steered blindly into the darkness, salt water spraying my face as tears blurred my vision. All I knew was that I had to get away. From Victor. From the lies. From the nightmare disguised as a sugar-coated dream. That night taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Nothing in life comes free. And sometimes, the most expensive gifts carry the darkest price. I thought it was easy money. I never thought I'd be the type of girl to get involved in something like this. Growing up, I was always the responsible one in my family. I kept my grades up, worked part-time jobs, and tried to stay away from unnecessary trouble. But the truth was, life had been rougher than I let on. I was 22, living in a cramped apartment in St. Louis, Missouri, with a rent bill that chewed up more than half of my monthly paycheck from working at a local diner. My mom had passed away when I was in high school, and my dad wasn't really around. He had a whole new family to take care of. For the most part, it was just me, and I had gotten used to surviving on my own. But survival doesn't mean living. It means scraping by, worrying about bills, skipping meals so I could afford textbooks for school. It meant saying no to trips with friends because I couldn't even afford gas money. And when the pressure got too heavy, I turned to the internet looking for answers. That's when I first heard about sugar daddy websites. It wasn't like I hadn't heard of them before. I had a friend, Samantha, who bragged constantly about the things her generous admirer bought her. A new iPhone, designer shoes, dinners at expensive restaurants. She swore she never had to sleep with the men. "It's just talking," she told me one night over greasy takeout. "Sometimes sending pictures, they're just lonely rich old dudes who want someone to make them feel wanted. Easy money." I wrinkled my nose. Yeah, but it sounds sketchy. What if one of them is a creep? Sam laughed and shoved a fry in her mouth. Of course they're creeps, but creeps with money. And you get to stay in control, babe. Trust me, I've been doing this for 6 months and I'm rolling in cash. At the time, my bank account had less than $47 in it, and rent was due in 10 days. I was desperate. Just don't use seeking arrangements, Sam warned, lowering her voice like we were discussing something illegal. That place is crawling with guys who expect more. I use a smaller site. Safer. Less competition. She scribbled the name of the site on a napkin and slid it toward me like it was a secret code. I stared at it for a while before shoving it into my pocket. That night, lying awake in my drafty apartment, I pulled out my phone and opened the site. The sign-up process was surprisingly quick. Username, email, some profile photos. I didn't even upload real ones at first. I used selfies where my face was half covered or filtered. Within 20 minutes, my inbox had messages. Most of them were disgusting, straight to the point. How much for nudes? Or, looking to meet tonight, cash in hand. I almost deleted the app right then, but one message caught my eye. Username, SilverFox39. Hi, sweetheart. I'm not looking for anything physical. I just want someone to talk to, someone genuine. I'll take care of you if you're willing to keep me company. It seemed harmless, polite, almost sweet. I clicked on his profile. He claimed to be 53, a retired businessman living in Kansas City. The bio was short but respectful, unlike the others. For some reason, I replied. Hey, I typed, what kind of company are you looking for? He responded instantly. Just someone to text with. Someone who won't judge me for being lonely. I've been divorced for years, and money doesn't mean much when you don't have anyone to talk to. It tugged at something inside me. Maybe guilt, maybe pity. We talked for hours that night, about books, movies, random small talk. He was charming in a stiff kind of way, like he was trying too hard to sound young. Before logging off, he said, I'd like to send you something as a thank you. Can you give me your Cash App? I hesitated, but my rent was due and I was broke. The next morning, I woke up to a notification. $500 received from SilverFox39. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. That was too easy. Days turned into weeks. He'd send me money almost every other day. Sometimes $200, sometimes $1,000, depending on how much attention I gave him. Good morning, love. Hope you're having a great day. Sent you a little something for lunch. Ding. $300. Miss our conversations. Here's $700 for being so sweet. I couldn't believe it. For once, my fridge was full. I bought new clothes. I even started saving a little. He asked for photos sometimes, but nothing crazy. A cute selfie, or your feet in socks. Honestly, I cheated most of the time. I'd grab random pictures from Pinterest or Google and send them. He never noticed. Or at least, I thought he didn't. One night, while texting him from bed, he asked something strange. When are we going to meet? I froze. Up until now, he hadn't pushed it. I don't really meet people from online, I typed back, trying to sound casual. Minutes later, he replied, I've given you $10,000 already. Don't you think it's time we see each other in person? My stomach dropped. I tried to brush it off. Maybe someday. Not this week, though. I've been busy with school and work. He sent a smiley face, but something about it felt off. A few nights later, he texted me again. You know, girls like you always think they can outsmart men like me. I blinked at the message. What's that supposed to mean? No response for a few minutes, then. I know you've been lying to me. I'm not stupid. My chest tightened. Was he talking about the pictures? The excuses? I don't know what you mean. Oh, you know exactly what I mean. No one gets away with scamming me. If I'm not mistaken, you live on Oak Ridge Avenue, apartment 2B in St. Louis. Right? My blood ran cold. I sat up in bed, staring at the glowing screen. That was my exact address. I tried to stay calm. Are you threatening me? He replied instantly. Not a threat, a promise. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm patient, but don't keep me waiting too long. I called Sam in tears. What the hell do I do? He knows where I live. Her voice shook. Block him. Delete everything. Change your number. These guys are obsessive. I told you to be careful. So I did. I blocked him, deleted the app, swore I was done, but it didn't stop. 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. Blocking me won't change anything. You're mine now. I stopped sleeping. Every creak in the apartment made me jump. I checked my locks obsessively. One night, I woke up to the sound of gravel crunching outside my window. My apartment was on the ground floor. Slowly, I pulled the curtain back. A car was parked across the street. The engine was off, but I could see the faint glow of a cigarette inside. He was watching. The texts got worse. Cute pajamas. Red looks good on you. You shouldn't leave your window open. I'll see you soon. I called the police, but they brushed it off. Probably just someone trying to scare you. Will patrol the area. But I knew. It was him. It happened on a Thursday night. I came home late from work, exhausted. As I unlocked my apartment door, I noticed it was already slightly open. My breath caught. I pushed it open slowly. The living room light was on, and sitting in my chair like he owned the place was a man I'd never seen before. Gray hair, expensive suit, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hello, sweetheart," he said softly. "Finally, we meet." What happened after that? I wish I could forget. The police found me hours later, shaken and barely able to speak. He was gone. My apartment was trashed, my phone smashed, and my bank account wiped clean. No one ever found him. I learned the hard way that easy money doesn't exist, and sometimes loneliness can turn men into monsters. I never thought my attempt to solve money problems would almost cost me my life. I was 23 back then, living in a small rented apartment above a laundromat in a busy city. I had just graduated from college, and although I worked part-time at a cafe, it barely covered my bills. My parents were simple people from a rural town, the kind who believed hard work would always keep you afloat. They had no idea how expensive city life had become. Rent, electricity, transportation, it was crushing me. I hated asking them for money, so I pretended everything was fine, but it wasn't. That's when I started hearing whispers about sugar dating. Girls my age talked about websites where you could meet wealthy men willing to give financial support in exchange for companionship. Some claimed they only went on dinners and made thousands. Others bragged about shopping sprees, new cars, or tuition paid in full. I was skeptical at first, but the idea gnawed at me. Was it really that simple? Was there really money waiting for me if I just played the role of someone's spoiled girl? I told myself I'd never do anything physical. Maybe just talk, text, or meet for lunch. With that excuse in my head, I signed up on one of those websites. I didn't even use my real name. I went by Sophia. Within days, I got dozens of messages. Most were old men sending pictures of themselves on yachts or pretending to be millionaires. A lot of them gave me the creeps instantly. But one profile stood out, Daniel. He said he was 47, a businessman who worked in real estate. His profile picture showed a man in a navy suit with salt and pepper hair, clean-shaven, smiling with perfect white teeth. He wrote in full sentences, polite, not crude like the others. His first message was simple. "Daniel, hello, Sophia. I'd love to get to know you. I believe in generosity when there's trust and respect. Tell me about yourself." I hesitated but replied. We exchanged a few messages. He told me he had a vacation house by the lake, that he traveled often, and that he was lonely because his kids were grown and lived abroad. He said he didn't want anything complicated, just someone to talk to and maybe spend time with. After a week of chatting, he asked to meet in person. "Daniel, I'll drive to your city and book a nice hotel. Nothing shady. I'd like to meet you in the lobby, have coffee, and see if we connect. If you feel uncomfortable at any moment, you can leave." That sounded safe enough. A public place, other people around. I convinced myself there was no harm. The day we were supposed to meet, I spent an hour deciding what to wear. Not too revealing, not too casual. I settled on jeans, a black top, and a light jacket. As I rode the bus to the hotel, my heart hammered in my chest. When I stepped into the hotel lobby, I spotted him immediately. Daniel looked exactly like his pictures, tall, broad-shouldered, expensive watch glinting on his wrist. He stood up when he saw me, smiling warmly. "Sophia?" he asked. "Yes." I nodded, forcing a smile. "You're even prettier than your photos," he said, offering his hand. His voice was deep, controlled. He wasn't creepy at first, he carried himself like a professional. We sat in the cafe, ordered coffee, and talked. He asked about school, my family, my plans for the future. He told me about his business trips, his beach house, how he'd been divorced for years. "I know this arrangement can feel strange," he said, lowering his voice. "But I'm serious when I say I can make your life easier. Rent, bills, even a car, I can take care of all that. All I need is your company." The way he said it sounded rehearsed, like he'd said it to many girls before me. But in that moment, all I could think about was the rent overdue notice sitting on my kitchen table. After an hour, Daniel leaned forward. "I booked a suite upstairs," he said smoothly. "Why don't we continue our conversation there? It'll be quieter." I froze. I thought we were just meeting for coffee." "Yes, of course," he said quickly. "No pressure. I just wanted to show you I'm serious. I even got you a gift." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small jewelry box. My stomach knotted. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet with tiny stones glittering under the lights. "I want you to have this," Daniel said. "Think of it as the beginning of trust." I didn't know what to say. A part of me was flattered. Another part screamed at me to leave. "I can't accept this," I whispered. "Why not?" His smile faded slightly. "It's nothing compared to what I'm willing to give you. I don't think I'm ready." That's when his expression changed. The warmth in his eyes drained, replaced by something sharper, darker. "You don't trust me?" he asked quietly. "No, it's not that." "Then come upstairs. No one's forcing you to do anything. Just spend the evening with me. I'll pay you $300 just to stay. No touching if you don't want it. Just let me hold you. That's all." I shook my head, panic rising. I really should go. When I stood, his chair scraped loudly against the floor as he rose too. "Don't walk away from me," Daniel said, his voice suddenly cold. I froze. People in the lobby were nearby, so I wasn't terrified yet, but the way he looked at me made my skin crawl. His jaw tightened, his fists clenched at his sides. "You think you're better than me?" he hissed. "No, you little girls come here wanting money, acting innocent. Do you know how many of you I've met? And now, you want to run after I wasted my time driving 3 hours for you?" His voice was low enough that only I could hear. His face was inches from mine, his eyes burning. "I'm leaving," I said firmly, grabbing my bag. He suddenly slammed his hand on the table, startling people nearby. "You think you can just use me, take my attention, my gifts, and walk away?" I stumbled back, my heart racing. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist, not hard, but enough to stop me. "You'll regret this, Sophia," he whispered. I yanked free and walked as fast as I could toward the exit. I didn't run. I didn't want to draw more attention, but every step felt like fire under my feet. When I stepped outside, I didn't see his car, but I had the awful feeling he was watching. That night, my phone buzzed with messages from unknown numbers. Unknown, ungrateful bitch. Unknown, you'll pay for embarrassing me. Unknown, don't think you can hide. I know where you live. I blocked every number, but new ones kept coming. My heart pounded every time I heard a notification. 2 days later, as I walked to class, I spotted a black SUV parked near campus. Through the windshield, I saw him, Daniel, just sitting there, sunglasses on, staring straight ahead. I ducked into a building and stayed inside for hours, too scared to come out. When I finally left through the back, the SUV was gone. For weeks, he appeared everywhere outside the cafe where I worked, near my apartment, even across the street from the grocery store. He never approached, just watched. I told myself I was imagining it, but the messages proved otherwise. One evening, I was unlocking my apartment when I heard footsteps behind me. My blood froze. I turned, and there he was, standing under the street lamp, smiling faintly. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He tilted his head. "Because you made me look like a fool. And I don't forgive that." I fumbled with my keys, rushing inside and slamming the door. He didn't try to follow, but I heard him laugh, a low, chilling laugh that echoed in my ears all night. Months later, just when I thought he had finally disappeared, his face appeared on the news. Local businessman arrested for the murder of 2 one-year-old college student. The victim's name was Emily Hart. She had been meeting Daniel through the same website I had used. Police reported that he lured her to his home with promises of money, then strangled her. Neighbors said they often saw young women coming and going from his house. He had a history of violence, but no one had ever pressed charges. I sat frozen in front of the television, shaking. That could have been me. Every night since, I wake up from nightmares of him standing in my room, holding that jewelry box, whispering, "Just let me hold you." I deleted every trace of that website, but the fear never left. To this day, I avoid black SUVs. To this day, I wonder if he would have killed me too, if I had gone upstairs that night. I was 22 when it happened. I wasn't naive, not completely. I'd already seen how unforgiving life could be. Bills stacked up like bricks I could never climb over, and my part-time job at a cafe barely kept me fed, let alone covered my rent. My parents were in another state, struggling themselves, and asking them for money wasn't an option. I remember sitting on my mattress one night, staring at my cracked phone screen, wondering how people my age were vacationing in Cancun while I was eating ramen 3 nights in a row. That's when the idea of a sugar daddy slipped into my head. It sounded easy, almost stupidly easy. There were entire forums, TikTok stories, even podcasts where girls laughed about old men paying for their shoes, their rent, even their tuition. "You don't even have to do anything," one girl said in a video I watched. "They're just lonely. They'll pay for your company." Lonely. Paying. Company. Those 3 words lodged themselves into my brain. That night, after hours of scrolling, I signed up on a site I'll call Elite Arrangements. I set up a profile. College student. Sweet. Fun. Looking for mentorship and companionship. Discreet. I uploaded 2 carefully chosen selfies, not too revealing but flattering enough to catch attention. Within a day, my inbox flooded. Most of the messages were exactly what I expected. Older men offering allowances for fun times. Some were blunt. Some were pathetic. Some just made me want to shower after reading them. But then there was one. His username was Mr. Gray 7. His message was simple, polite, and frighteningly normal. "Hi Jenna. You seem genuine. And I like that. I'm not looking for anything seedy, I'm looking for company. Dinner, conversation, maybe someone to confide in. I can help you financially in return. No pressure, no strings attached. If you're interested, let's meet for coffee first. Public place. My treat." I stared at his profile picture. He was in his 50s, maybe early 60s. Expensive suit, salt and pepper hair, a smile that was somewhere between kind and calculated. His bio said he was a business consultant, divorced, no kids. It felt safe, or as safe as something like this could feel. I told myself, if it's weird, I'll leave, it's just coffee. The next afternoon, I chose the busiest cafe in town. My heart raced the entire walk there. When I saw him sitting by the window, I almost turned around, but he stood up as soon as he saw me, smiling warmly. "Jenna?" I nodded. "Richard," he said, offering his hand. "Thank you for meeting me." We sat down. He didn't leer at me, didn't make creepy comments about my appearance. He asked about my classes, my family, what I wanted to do after graduation. He talked about books, movies, traveling. It felt like a job interview mixed with a date, but not in a bad way. After an hour, he said calmly, "I'd like to see you again. I can help you with $500 weekly, if you'd be open to dinners or outings with me." My throat went dry. $500. That was my rent. Right there. I heard myself say, yes. For the first month, it was perfect. Richard was generous, polite, even charming. He took me to nice restaurants, always in public. He transferred money without hesitation. He never pressured me physically, just held my hand sometimes. Or kissed my cheek goodbye. I told myself, this isn't bad. This is easy money. But little things started to nag at me. Once, when I laughed at something during dinner, I noticed his eyes studying me. Too intense, like he was memorizing every expression. Another time, he asked, "Do you tell your friends about me?" I said no, and he smiled like that was the answer he wanted. And then there was the time I mentioned I might move apartment soon, closer to campus. The next day, he texted me the address of a complex I'd casually looked at weeks earlier but never told him about. I asked him how he knew. He brushed it off. "You must have mentioned it. I have a good memory." I didn't remember mentioning it. It was the third month when things changed. We were at a quiet Italian restaurant. The lights were dim, candles flickering. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You make me happy, Jenna," he said. "Happier than I've been in years." I smiled awkwardly. "I'm glad." "I don't want to share you," he added softly. I froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I don't want you seeing other men, even boys your age. I want this to be exclusive." His eyes pinned me down. "Can you promise me that?" My chest tightened. "Richard?" "Promise me," he interrupted. I swallowed. "Okay. Sure." His grip loosened. He smiled. "Good girl." That night, when I got home, I noticed a small box outside my door. Inside was a brand new iPhone, still sealed, with a note. "So you never ignore my calls. R." I hadn't given him my address. Over the next few weeks, his behavior escalated. He started texting me every hour. If I didn't reply fast enough, he'd send, "Where are you? Who are you with? Why aren't you answering?" Once, I left my shift at the cafe and found him waiting in his car across the street, smiling as if it were normal. When I confronted him, he said, "I just wanted to make sure you got home safe." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But one night, I woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of my phone buzzing. It was him. Dozens of messages. "Are you asleep? Answer me. I know you're awake. Why are you ignoring me? Don't make me come over." I stared at my locked door, my pulse hammering, wondering if he was outside. The night it all collapsed, he invited me to what he called a weekend getaway. A cabin outside the city. Just us. No interruptions. My gut screamed no. But my rent was due, and I was terrified of angering him. So I agreed. The drive was long, winding through dark roads lined with trees. He talked the whole way about how peaceful it would be, how I didn't need anyone but him. When we arrived, the cabin was beautiful but isolated, no neighbors, no phone signal. My chest tightened. Inside, everything was meticulously arranged. Wine, glasses, candles, a fire already lit. Too perfect, too staged. At dinner, he poured me wine. I only pretended to sip it. "Do you love me, Jenna?" he asked suddenly. I choked. "Richard, this isn't love." His smile vanished. "It will be. You'll see." Later, when he went to the bathroom, I checked my phone. No signal. No way to call for help. That's when I noticed a door at the back of the cabin. Locked. My curiosity got the better of me. When he finally fell asleep, I quietly searched for a key. I found one in his jacket pocket. The door creaked open, and what I saw inside made my blood freeze. Photographs. Hundreds of them. Me walking to class. At the cafe. With my friends. In my apartment building lobby. Even inside my apartment, asleep in bed. I staggered back, my hand over my mouth. That's when I heard his voice behind me. "You weren't supposed to see that." I spun around. Richard stood in the doorway, eyes cold, a knife glinting in his hand. "You don't understand," he said calmly. "I take care of you. I make you safe. And in return, you stay with me. Forever." My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear. "Richard, please put that down. We can talk." He stepped closer. "I've already decided. You're not leaving me." Adrenaline surged. Without thinking, I grabbed the nearest thing, a heavy glass bottle, and smashed it across his arm. He cried out, dropping the knife. I ran. Out the front door, into the trees, barefoot, freezing, branches tearing at my skin. I didn't look back. I ran until headlights appeared on the road. A truck slowed down, the driver rolling down the window. "Jesus, are you okay?" I sobbed. "Please help me." The police raided the cabin that night. They found the photos. They found a box under his bed filled with locks of hair, pieces of clothing, souvenirs from me, maybe from others too. Richard was arrested. I never saw him again. I moved apartments. I changed my number. I deleted every sugar site account I had. But sometimes, at night, I still wake up convinced someone's watching me. Sometimes, I catch myself glancing at windows, half expecting his face in the dark. And sometimes, when my phone buzzes unexpectedly, my stomach drops before I even check the screen. Because part of me knows if he ever gets out, he'll come looking for me again. I grew up feeling like I was always one step behind everyone else. My body was never the type celebrated in glossy magazines or Instagram reels. Thick in every sense, hips, arms, thighs. I was labeled fat before I ever knew what beauty standards even were. My father was absent. My mother was harsh in her own way. And the mirror was my greatest critic. By the time I hit my early 20s, I had mastered the art of hiding myself baggy clothes, avoiding cameras, and building a world where I didn't have to face judgment. My world was small. My bedroom, my phone, my notebooks. Writing became my escape. On anonymous platforms, I poured out love stories I had never lived, romances where women like me found acceptance, where someone looked at them like they were the only thing that mattered. Ironically, my readers adored me without ever knowing my face, but outside of that world, I was invisible. The loneliness gnawed at me. Night stretched long, my phone screen glowing in the dark, while I scrolled through feeds filled with relationships, engagements, and perfect lives. I told myself I didn't need love, but a part of me ached for someone to see me. Really see me? That's when the ads started popping up: dating apps, sugar dating sites, places where, supposedly, older men took care of younger women. At first, I scoffed. Then curiosity crept in. Maybe I could find someone who would like me as I was. Someone who wouldn't care if I didn't fit the standard mold. I signed up. No picture, just a vague description. My profile sat there, hidden in the sea of glossy, filtered faces. Most nights I just scrolled, never messaging, never daring to risk rejection. My self-esteem wouldn't let me. Still, I read through profiles like a guilty pleasure. Tall men in suits, salt and pepper, businessmen. Even younger guys looking for something transactional. Then one night, after I'd exhausted my stash of chips and sat restless on my bed, my phone pinged. A message from someone named Daniel Pierce. "Hi," it read. I blinked, almost dropping the phone. Nobody ever reached out to me. My profile was practically invisible. My heart started racing. I clicked his profile. Handsome, broad shoulders, sharp jawline, dressed smart but casual in most of his photos. His bio was simple: 45, single, successful, looking for someone genuine. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Hello." Almost instantly, he wrote back, "How are you doing, gorgeous?" I froze. Gorgeous. My profile didn't even have a photo. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I typed, "You don't even know what I look like." His reply came within seconds. "I believe the most beautiful souls hide. That's why I'm here to find the kind of beauty the world overlooks." I laughed nervously, a smile tugging at my lips despite myself. Nobody had ever said something like that to me. Not once. That was the start. For 2 weeks, Daniel and I spoke every day. Morning greetings, late-night confessions, silly little jokes that made me laugh until my stomach hurt. He never asked for my photo. Not once. That should have been strange, but instead it made me trust him more. He cared about my words, my thoughts. He called me Angel. He said I made him feel alive again. For the first time in years, I felt like maybe I wasn't invisible. Then one night, he finally asked, "Would you like to meet me in person?" My stomach dropped. "I'm not sure I'm what you're expecting," I typed. "You're exactly what I want," he wrote back. "Please, dinner tomorrow night, the Blue Haven Cafe, 8 p.m. I hesitated, fingers trembling. Then I typed, "Okay." The next day was a blur. I tried on half my closet, finally settling on a deep red dress I hadn't worn since high school. My nerves were on fire. When 7:45 rolled around, I locked my door and stepped outside, only to nearly scream when I saw my neighbor standing by his gate. Mr. Lawson was in his late 52nd, quiet, odd. He had moved in recently, but he never spoke much, just sat outside on an old wooden chair facing my house, always watching, always silent. "God, you scared me," I blurted out. He tilted his head. "Going somewhere?" "Dinner," I said quickly, brushing past. His eyes lingered on me in a way that made my skin crawl. "Be careful," he said flatly. I didn't reply. I was too focused on the night ahead. Blue Haven Cafe was warm and softly lit, the clinking of glasses and low chatter filling the air. I sat at a corner table, heart hammering, until I finally saw him. Daniel. He looked exactly like his pictures, tall, well-dressed, clean-shaven. He smiled when he spotted me, walking over with an ease that made my nerves spike. "You must be my angel," he said, voice smooth as velvet. I swallowed hard. "That's me." Dinner was perfect. He asked about my writing, my dreams, even my insecurities. He never made me feel small. For the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered. When he reached across the table and brushed my hand with his, I didn't pull away, but something gnawed at me. His phone buzzed twice during dinner, and each time he flipped it face down without answering. His eyes flicked toward the door more often than seemed normal. When I excused myself to the restroom, I thought I saw him slip something into his jacket pocket, but I told myself I was being paranoid. After dinner, he insisted on driving me home. I hesitated, but his voice was calm, persuasive. "I just want to make sure you get home safe." I agreed. The ride started fine. His car smelled faintly of leather and cologne. We talked about music, books, little things. But then he took a turn that wasn't the way to my house. I think you missed the street," I said. No, he replied smoothly. "Shortcut." Every hair on my body stood up. My phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. "Don't trust him. Get out. Lawson." My blood ran cold. I looked at Daniel. His jaw was clenched, eyes forward. My hands shook as I fumbled with my seatbelt. "Actually, can you stop here? I need to grab something from a friend's place," I lied. His grip tightened on the wheel. "We're almost there, Angel." "Stop the car," I said firmly, voice shaking. He glanced at me, eyes dark. "Don't you trust me?" Something inside me snapped. I yanked the handle and shoved the door open while the car slowed at a stop sign. I tumbled onto the pavement, scraping my knee, heart pounding out of my chest. By the time I looked up, Daniel was gone. His car sped off into the night without a trace. I stumbled home in shock, every step feeling unreal. Lawson was still outside, sitting in his chair. When he saw me, he stood. "I told you to be careful," he said quietly. I wanted to ask how he knew, why he texted me, what Daniel's intentions really were. But all I could do was nod, tears stinging my eyes. That night, I deleted the app. I deleted my anonymous accounts. I stared at my reflection in the mirror for a long time, realizing how easily my loneliness could have destroyed me. I don't know what Daniel wanted. Money? Control? Something worse? But I know one thing. I was lucky to come home alive. And sometimes, the creepiest neighbors aren't the ones you should fear the most. I never thought I'd ever give online dating another chance. After a string of awkward encounters, ghosted text chains, and one absolute disaster of a dinner date where the guy showed up drunk and tried to borrow money from me, I swore off the apps. But loneliness has a way of creeping in when you least expect it. My name is Lena Graves. I'm 26, and I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I rent a small apartment near the harbor. Nothing fancy, just enough for me and my cat. I work as a copy editor for a local newspaper, a job that doesn't pay much, but it keeps me afloat. My friends are either married, pregnant, or working 60-hour weeks, and nights in my quiet apartment started to feel suffocating. So, against my better judgment, I downloaded a new dating app that marketed itself as being for serious connections. Of course, serious usually meant middle-aged men with too much money looking for someone younger to spoil. I laughed at it at first, but then curiosity pulled me in. That's when I matched with him. Marcus Halloway, 42. His profile was different. No shirtless selfies, no corny quotes. Just clean photos of him in fitted suits, sitting at polished restaurant tables, and walking a black Labrador on a trail somewhere near the ocean. He had sharp features, dark hair streaked with silver, and an intensity in his eyes that unsettled me yet drew me in. His message came within minutes. "You're stunning. I'd like to take you somewhere nice. No games, no pressure, just dinner and good conversation." I should have ignored it, but I didn't. Something in me wanted to believe that maybe this one could be different. He picked the restaurant, an upscale place called Harbor House, the kind of spot I'd never afford on my own. When I arrived, it was eerily quiet. The maitre d' greeted me by name, which startled me. "This way, Miss Graves. Mr. Halloway is waiting." The dining room was almost empty, except for a single round table in the center where Marcus sat alone, a glass of wine in front of him. He looked exactly like his picture's sharp suit, calculated posture, eyes that seemed to study me as I approached. "Lena," he said with a faint nod. His voice was deep, steady. "You're even lovelier in person." I felt my face flush. "Thank you. This place is fancy." He gave a small shrug, expressionless. "I like privacy when I eat." I booked the room. Booked the room? Who does that? The waitstaff moved like shadows around us, their faces blank, almost robotic. No one spoke unless Marcus lifted a finger. "You didn't have to go through all this trouble," I said, trying to lighten the mood. "For you?" I did. His eyes never left me, like I was under a microscope. I laughed nervously and picked up my menu. "You're making me feel like a specimen in a lab. You're perfect," he said without hesitation. Exactly what I wanted. The way he said it chilled me, though I tried to brush it off. Our conversations flowed well. Mine did. I filled the silence with talk about my job, my cat, my love for horror movies. He listened, barely blinking, answering only when necessary. Not once did he smile. Not once did he frown. His face was a mask. I raised my glass. "So, Marcus, be honest. Are you secretly a doomsday robot?" To my surprise, he lifted his glass too. "No," he said flatly. "I'm not." The way he said it made me laugh. But in the back of my mind, a strange unease took root. The dinner ended too quickly. He paid in cash crisp bills, like they'd never been touched. "Would you like to come over?" I asked, surprising myself. My own voice trembled, but something about him pulled me in despite every red flag waving in my head. "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "I'd love that." We walked to his sleek black car, but I insisted on driving us instead. My old sedan looked ridiculous next to his machine, but he agreed, sliding into the passenger seat silently. His hands were cold when I touched them, stiff, almost unnatural. Yet part of me still leaned closer. We kissed before I unlocked the door to my apartment. His lips were soft but controlled, as if rehearsed. Just as we broke apart, a flash of light blinded us. "What the hell?" I gasped. "Who's that?" Marcus asked, his voice unchanged, calm. I looked up and saw it my neighbor from across the hall, Mr. Rowan. He was in his 60s, balding, always lurking near his door. He stood with a flashlight aimed directly at us, watching without saying a word. "Jesus, ignore him," I muttered. "He's just weird." But the way Rowan's eyes locked on Marcus unsettled me. He wasn't just being nosy. He was studying him, the same way Marcus studied me. Inside, Marcus requested the lights be turned off. I hesitated, but then complied. In the dark, he pulled me close, spinning me around playfully. His strength startled me, too precise, too perfect. We fell into bed, and what followed was raw, intense, overwhelming. I slept in his arms, but unease crawled under my skin. Around 2 a.m., I woke to creaking floorboards. My apartment wasn't big, and every sound carried. At first, I thought it was the pipes. Then came the unmistakable sound of footsteps. "Marcus," I whispered, tugging at him. He didn't stir. The doorknob turned. Slowly, a crack of light spilled in. I held my breath. Standing there was Rowan, my creepy neighbor, holding a knife that shimmered in the faint glow from the hall. His face was twisted with something between fear and rage. Before I could scream, he lunged. Marcus shot up, confused, and met Rowan's blade head-on. The struggle was violent, messy, crashing against the walls. I scrambled off the bed, clutching the duvet around me. Rowan stabbed Marcus in the shoulder. I gasped, expecting blood. But what came out wasn't blood. It was thick, black fluid, oozing like tar. My knees buckled. What the hell? The light from the hallway seemed to weaken Marcus. He moved sluggishly, fighting more by instinct than vision. Rowan, with surprising strength for an older man, drove the knife into Marcus's chest, then his eye. The sound was wet, horrifying. Marcus collapsed, silent, lifeless. Rowan dropped the knife, breathing heavily. He reached into Marcus's jacket pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and threw it at me. My trembling hands opened it. Eliminate. Lena Graves. Tears blurred my vision. Me? Why, who are you? Rowan's voice shook. I'm your father, Lena. And that thing, he wasn't a man. He was sent to kill you. I followed him in disbelief to his apartment across the hall. Inside, my world unraveled. The walls were covered with photos of me childhood, high school, college, pictures I didn't even know existed, and pictures of my mother, too smiling, alive. My voice cracked. How do you have these? Tell me everything. Who are you? He turned, eyes full of regret. I was part of an organization, a syndicate. We built things like him, mechanical assassins, designed to look human. When I tried to leave, they turned on me. I barely escaped. Your mother went into hiding. They couldn't find me, so they came for you. I shook my head violently. No, this is insane. You're insane. Sweetheart, he said softly, stepping closer. I know it's too much, but you saw it yourself. He wasn't human. You were targeted because of me. That's why we have to leave. Tonight. It's not safe here. Your mother's alive. She's waiting for us. Waiting. Where? The outskirts of Montana. Remote. Off their radar. We can be a family again. My legs trembled beneath me. My entire life felt like it had shattered in seconds. But when I thought about Marcus's lifeless body, the black goo seeping into my sheets, I realized I had no choice. I packed quickly, clothes, documents, anything I could grab. Rowan, my father, if he was telling the truth, loaded it into his car. As we drove into the night, the city lights fading behind us, I stared down at the journal in my lap. My hands shook as I began to write, documenting every detail. Not because I wanted to remember, but because I was terrified I'd wake up tomorrow and no one would believe this ever happened. The road stretched endlessly ahead, toward a life I never asked for but now had no choice but to live. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to download a dating app, but loneliness has a way of sneaking up on you when life gets quiet. I was 20, juggling part-time classes at community college and a cashier job at a grocery store in Brook Hill, a mid-sized city in Oregon. My friends had either moved away or gotten busy with their own lives. I'd come home to my small apartment, bare walls, second-hand couch, the constant hum of the fridge, and the silence would press down on me like a weight. One night, scrolling on my phone under the yellow light of my bedside lamp, I saw an ad for a sugar dating app. The kind that promises stability, gifts, maybe even excitement. At first, I laughed it off. That wasn't me. But curiosity has sharp teeth. I signed up, half as a joke, and within an hour my inbox was full. Most messages were crass, straight to the point, but one stood out. His profile name was Marcus Hale, age 42. His pictures showed a man in expensive suits, clean-shaven, strong jaw, eyes that looked too sharp for the smile he wore. His first message wasn't crude like the others. Loneliness is heavier when you pretend it doesn't exist. I know what that feels like. Something about that line hooked me. It felt seen. We started talking. He told me he was a businessman who traveled often, that he had an empty house too large for one person. He said he wasn't looking for someone shallow, he wanted company. Someone to share dinners with. Someone who could understand him. I should have known better. My gut tightened with every message, but I ignored it. He made me feel wanted. After 2 weeks, he suggested dinner. Not at some chain restaurant, but at an upscale French place downtown. I hesitated. Meeting a stranger, especially one who wanted to play sugar dad, screamed danger. But he assured me it would be public, safe, and that he'd even cover my Uber. I didn't tell my mom or my sister. They wouldn't have understood. They'd say I was reckless, maybe desperate, maybe I was. The night of the dinner, I wore the nicest dress I owned, a navy one that clung in all the right places but didn't show too much. The restaurant loomed ahead of me when the Uber dropped me off, golden lights spilling out of tall windows. It looked like a place where people whispered instead of spoke. Inside, the hostess smiled politely. "Reservation name?" "Marcus Hale," I said, my voice catching a little. She nodded, leading me past rows of white-clothed tables to the center of the room. That's when I froze. Marcus was already there, alone, seated at a round table, the only one not pushed against the walls, like the whole room revolved around him. He stood when he saw me, smiling warmly. "You're even more stunning than I imagined." His voice was smooth, but there was a weight to it, a firmness that didn't invite contradiction. I sat down, my palms sweaty against the linen. As the night went on, the waiters moved like shadows, faces blank, almost mechanical. Every time one refilled my glass, I noticed their eyes flat, lifeless, as if they weren't really there. I told myself I was imagining it. Marcus asked questions about my life, my family, my dreams. He listened intently, leaning forward like every word mattered. Yet, his stare never softened. It was like being studied. Halfway through dinner, he said something that made my stomach twist. "You remind me so much of someone I used to know," he murmured, fingers tracing the rim of his wine glass. "Who?" I asked, trying to sound casual. His eyes flicked up to mine. "My daughter." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. He smiled faintly, like he'd said something sweet. But there was nothing sweet about the way his eyes lingered on me. That night was only the beginning. He texted constantly, calling me his girl. He sent expensive gifts, jewelry, shoes, a new phone. I tried to back off, but he always pulled me back with guilt, with promises, with reminders of how much he'd already given me. One evening, he insisted I come to his house. "You'll feel safer knowing where I live," he said. "No secrets." Against every instinct screaming at me, I agreed. His house was on the outskirts of the city, a massive stone place tucked behind tall iron gates. The driver who dropped me off muttered, "Creepy spot," before speeding away. Marcus greeted me at the door in a black suit, no tie, like he was expecting royalty. The house inside was immaculate, too immaculate. The air smelled faintly of bleach. "Make yourself at home," he said, guiding me through rooms that looked like museum exhibits. No family photos, no clutter, just perfection. In the dining room, the table was set for two. Candles flickered. As I sat down, I noticed something strange, a large portrait above the fireplace. A man in a suit, with sharp eyes and a familiar smile. Marcus, but younger, only the artist had painted a small detail most people wouldn't notice at first glance. A faint red hole at the side of his forehead. My chest tightened. "What is that?" I asked, pointing. Marcus's smile didn't waver. "A reminder," he said simply. That was the night the whispers began. At first, I thought I was imagining them. A faint voice brushing against my ear when Marcus turned away. "Leave. He isn't what you think." I jerked in my seat, heart pounding. "Did you say something?" Marcus tilted his head. "Number why?" I shook my head quickly, forcing a laugh. "Nothing." But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, more urgent, especially when Marcus touched me, when he leaned too close. One night, as he poured wine into my glass, the whisper hissed clear as day. "He killed me. She should have died instead." The glass shattered in my hand, wine and blood spilling onto the tablecloth. Marcus grabbed my wrist, hard. "Careful, sweetheart," he said softly, though his grip was iron. His eyes locked on mine, unblinking. I couldn't breathe. Weeks blurred into months. I couldn't escape him. Gifts turned into obligations. Dinners turned into demands. The whispers, always the whispers, followed me everywhere. Sometimes, in class, I'd glance at the window and see Marcus standing outside, watching, his eyes empty, his smile stretched too wide. I stopped telling anyone. My mom, my sister, they wouldn't believe me. But I knew. Marcus wasn't just a man. He was something else. something that shouldn't exist, and I was trapped. The last night came in late October. He called, his voice unusually low. Dinner. Tonight. No excuses. I tried to protest, but he cut me off. You don't understand. This is the night. Everything changes. I went. The house was darker than usual, shadows clinging to the corners. The table was set again, but this time there was only one plate. For you, he said, pulling out the chair. My throat tightened. Aren't you eating? He smiled. I already have. The whispers screamed in my ear now. Don't eat, don't drink, run. But Marcus leaned close, his breath cold against my cheek. Do you know why I chose you? I shook my head, trembling. His smile widened, revealing too many teeth. Because you see me. Most don't. They pretend. But you, he touched my chest, right over my heart. You're mine. I pushed back from the table, stumbling. I need to go. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist again. Harder this time. That's when I saw it. The faint, bleeding hole at his temple, just like in the portrait. I gasped, yanking free. You're not real. He tilted his head, eyes burning. Real enough to keep you. The whispers rose to a scream. Run. I bolted, slamming through the front door, down the driveway, into the night. My lungs burned, my legs shook, but I didn't stop until I reached the main road. When I finally looked back, the house was dark, silent, but I knew he wasn't gone. I still hear him. In the quiet, in the shadows, in the moments when I think I'm safe, he whispers in my ear. She should have died, not me. And sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, he's sitting at the edge of my bed, watching, waiting.